our flagship asset, Chris, is a mine called Pulicayo. It's the second largest silver mine in the world, based on 670 million ounces of historical production. It is the largest underground silver mine in the world. And we took over the asset in 2015. We drilled about 90,000 meters, and we developed independent resource, 43101, of 57 million ounces of silver at over 400 grams per ton. Very, very high grade. And interesting is, only 30% of the mineralized belt had been explored.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And on another fun day where we have the price of silver rallying, crossed $28 earlier this morning, and there is growing excitement in the silver mining stocks. And today, excited to be joined by John Lee of Silver Elephant Mining, who's going to give us a rundown of what they've been up to, actually some things that I'm intrigued by and excited to hear more about. So John, thank you so much for joining me today, and how's everything going with you?
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. It's very good to be on your show for the first time.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here, and maybe just, I know this will probably make everyone smile. We see silver was rallying quite a bit, up to almost 28.5, then took a little dinger. You should see the volume behind that spot where it dropped, but still. John, I mean, it's only a month ago that silver was $18. Now it's $28. So people excited about the stocks, and especially for folks who might not have heard of Silver Elephant before, can you give them an idea of the profile and what your goal is and how that fits in with the silver picture?
Chris, Silver Elephant is a TSX main board listed silver exploration company. We target equity investors who want to own as much silver in the ground as possible.
Yep.
And we're a bit unique in that we do silver exploration is our main focus. So we're not into copper, lithium, or cobalt. We're a team of highly qualified and specialized exploration geologists that hunt for silver prospects, drill them, develop them, add resources in the ground, in turn create shareholder value.
Okay, and could you touch a little more, because one of the things I thought interesting was focusing on metal in the ground. You've mentioned in some of your other talks that you don't want to necessarily be in a rush to sell silver at a low price, so you focused on having pieces of land where the silver is, which opens to you have the option to go to production. Or I think it'll be interesting to see if the price continues, or even if the price just stays where it is. A lot of value there. So if you could explain that strategy and some of the places you're looking.
Hey, Chris, I've been in the mining industry since early 2000. I graduated from Rice University. I spent 5 years in the .com and stumbled onto the mining scene in early 2000 when Gordon Brown, the Bank of England, dropped their last bit of gold at 300, and that was how I got started. Valuing mining company is more of an art than science, as I sort of, being through this sort of in the industry for a decade and a half. And people buy mining companies partly because it's for its cash flow, but also for that optionality. And Chris, and if you look at the mining company, the skill set required to run a mining company, the exploration is quite different from mining. In fact, it's almost polar opposite. The construction and management operations of a mine is very engineering, very sort of banal and day-to-day Lego building exercise engineering. And whereas on the other side, it's like a manufacture of a car too. The design of a car is very different from the manufacture of a car. And where we see adding value for us is to utilize the precious capital provided to us by the shareholders to identify silver in the ground. And then to identify the prospects, to acquire them, to de-risk them from community relation. It's not simply just, hey, drill a couple of holes and play golf, Chris. There's actually a lot of things go into it. And there's community relations, there is metallurgical work, there is studying of the deposit to try to increase the resources, dealing with the government on the permitting, on the environmental fronts, to de-risk the project to the point of exploiting all the potential dimensions of the size of the project, and then at the right time, at the right point, and and I myself as the chartered financial analyst to Chris, and then we say, hey, look, we will look to exit the market at the 20% from the top and not 20% from the bottom. So at that time, we'll try to make the asset and the package as attractive as possible, and then we'll have the options of either, if the market is conducive for us to do a project financing at a minimal dilutive terms, to commission the project ourselves, which we can certainly do, but we need to get more different set of people with different skill set involved. They're more rigid versus we're now more flexible. Or we can joint venture with a major or become a royalty company and whatnot. There's a lot of options available right now. However, Chris, make no mistake about it, I'm sure we'll talk about it later in the show, we are absolutely in a watershed event in terms of the precious metals market. That the game is only gotten started and we're nowhere near the top. And so our focus right now is really to assemble as many qualified silver prospects as we can, and then start that de-risking process and build up a portfolio, expanding portfolio of silver resources, and then grow them into our target of 100 to 200 million ounces in the ground in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, well, I sure like the sound of that. And I think especially for people that feel the price is not at its true value right now, or it's going higher for whatever reason, it's interesting rather than a company that's selling the metal at $28, or if it goes down $4, it's interesting, especially because I like what you mentioned about knowing what you do well and focusing on that. I've had it's been quite an adventure for me coming from corporate, learning how to start a business. And I found the more that, you focus on what your true strength is, which, and you talked about that a little bit, but obviously the management team, one of the biggest factors in any of these projects. Again, if you could touch on really how you are focusing on that specific area and doing that well, because I think it is that important.
Yes. Chris, you're absolutely right. The mining industry is a burning match, right? It's a depleting industry. So that once you mine, you don't have it back. And logically, you want to exchange your money for fiat at the right point in time. So that's the first point. And secondly, as I said, I've been around. Unfortunately, I didn't have, because I'm a bit of an outsider coming in from technology industry. We didn't really have a sort of it's not like I worked for Barrick for 20 years and I know who I work with. So a lot of it is trial by error and assemble a team of which have good chemistry and work together. We have 2 full-time geologists, one work for Hecla and one for Falcon Bridge. And then for the country that we're in, which is Bolivia, we have 2 local geologists and a number of helpers. So we already assembled a team, and we also have a great set of projects to start with, and we're looking for more. Hopefully it answers the question.
Yeah, and obviously people are wondering about Bolivia. I find, especially here in the United States, that many American investors here, anywhere in South America, it freaks them out a little bit. Although ironically, when people talk about mining in California, there's real geopolitical risk. But if you can talk about Bolivia, and I believe you lived there for 3 years as well, is that correct?
Yes, Chris. I'm the largest shareholder of the company. We grew the company by M&A, so it's not like I have a project, a back burner that's generational, of which you get penny stocks. I do a lot of vetting and due diligence myself for all the projects that we have in our portfolio. I actually spend time with the locals, with the government, and just understood about the culture and how things work.
Yeah.
In outside of the U.S., Chris, when you deal in businesses, you got to really apply what I call the 3 factors. There's the rule of law, which is 95% or if not 99% of how North America business operate, and there's the rule of logic. Okay, and there's a rule of relationship. In other parts of the world, the 3, a lot of that play equal parts. And so you got to calibrate those factors operating in those countries. That's how I spend a lot of times in South America. And just real quick, for example, you cannot reasonably expect the country to adhere to your terms if you made a huge $100 billion discovery like Grasberg. or like Robert Freeland's Oil Togoi, or like the oil in Saudi Arabia back in Standard Oil back in the 1950s. So I think that's where the rule of logic come in. You cannot be so stuck about that piece of paper that you sign.
Yes, yeah.
So with the rule of relationship. So having said that set in mind, Bolivia is an interesting country. Our team has been operating in Bolivia since 2005, and that was before the socialist Evo Morales came into power. And in the intervening years, we've been operating in that country for almost 15 years without any government interference. And the reason for that exactly is I mentioned, because we have very strong relationship with the local community, and now because Evo Morales has fled the country in Bolivia in November, and a new pro-free market, pro-capitalist government is operating now in Bolivia. That is firmly in the camp of Peru and Colombia and Brazil. And Bolivia just received its first aid from the United States, and the United States talking about opening a U.S. embassy for the first time in Bolivia for over 15 years. You got to look at from the forward, not from the rearview mirror. And a lot of things are said about Bolivia. We could spend an hour talking about it, but I would just say it is a very safe country to operate. Never do I want to feel threatened in any way. And it's a fairly conservative country, and there's not a lot of income disparities. And we see right now the country is over 15 years of very socialist rule. They're now saying, hey, they want change, right? Just like United States and Canadian politics, pendulum swing one. If you had Trudeau, if you had Harper for 8 years, and now you got Trudeau, liberal, and then in the United States, Obama, and now you have Trump. Same. So you had a very conservative socialist government, and people really want to open up the economy, and in such as a fancy department store, such as new cars. And so we see a very bright future. Also, with the well-endowed geological potential, we're very comfortable with Bolivia. We think the risk is very manageable.
Well, I love the way you look at it and approach it, because I mean, it's like any of the places people want to look for silver. There's not any, perfect government out there. And it reminds me a lot on the trading floor. It was great practice. There's what I think should happen, what
Yes.
I think is fair. And then there's what's going to happen. And, I mean, if you look at the government of any of these regions as someone who's going to be involved and say, all right, and whether it's Democrat, Republican, Socialist, maybe they're not all that different when you strip them down, but you have to have someone who can do a negotiation, which I like the way you approach that.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, Chris, it's people, I work with, our company has employed staff over 16 countries, and we've worked with governments all over the world. In the end, people just need to put food on the table for their families, and they just understand their version of the reality, understand their concerns, and proactively addressing them. And so far we've been doing quite well.
Yeah, amazing how you do that approach anywhere in life. That's why, even more than, I'm not a quantitative genius, but it's like I look, how do people respond and go about things, and if you have an approach of how can everyone involved win in the situation, things usually end up going a lot better than some of the other ways folks do things. A couple more before we wrap up on the company. I know you're also backed by Sprott, and that's something people obviously take notice of. So anything you could share there, or some of the other investors, and also the share structure, to let folks know how that looks.
Yeah, hey, Chris. Yes, we talked to Eric last year. The assets, Chris, really speaks for themselves. In the mining business, people say, all this management that matters, management that matters. John, you don't have a track record, you don't know about mining. I'm saying, look, you can have management, good management, but you're just putting lipstick on a you just put a lipstick, right, on the thing. Like Joe Biden on the thing. So if you don't mind, I just spend a minute talk about our assets. Our flagship asset, Chris, is a mine called Pulicayo. It's the second largest silver mine in the world, based on 670 million ounces of historical production. It is the largest underground silver mine in the world. And we took over the asset in 2015. We drilled about 90,000 meters, and we developed independent resource, 43-101, of 57 million ounces of silver at over 400 grams per ton. Very, very high grade. And interesting is only 30% of the mineralized belt had been explored, over 3 kilometers. Yeah. And the mine goes down to over 1 kilometer, of which we only drilled up to 300 meters. So you can imagine if the whole mine's like this, we only drill a little quadrant from near surface, and that's already 57 million ounces. We also just recently acquired a different project called Trinfo. It's a little different beast. It's featured a very rare intercept of 94 meters of 1 gram gold equivalent. It's about half a gram of gold and 22 grams of silver and 1% lead and zinc. The deposit is a 1 kilometer strike and open at depth. And it's a bulk tonnage project. As the rigs are on site, will be start drilling this week. And as you continue to step up on the historical drill holes, you're going to add tonnages, and you will not be surprised to see a 30 to 50 million tons of a resource, and that's 1 to 2 million ounce gold equivalent. Yeah. So go back to Sprott. He looked at the asset. It took all but 1 minute to put the money into the company, and since then he's done very well, more than doubled his money. In addition, it's not to say management is not important. It's still, and our company is managed by executives that were formerly with Hecla and Barrick and Falconbridge. The company has very good trading liquidity. We're trading, I think, almost $2 million today for 3-4 million shares out of a company, for a company that's just under $100 million market cap. We've turned over our entire company float in the last 6 months. Just in August, so far, we traded like 30 million shares, because clearly there's accumulation of shares going on. And so I think for sophisticated investors looking for exactly for that leverage, silver in the ground, that we are really in an idea vehicle. And coincidentally, Sprott just announced the intention to purchase $1.5 billion silver physical, and I would say don't wait for too long to establish a position. The genie is squeezing the bottle. you don't want to wait too long there, Chris.
Yeah, certainly exciting times. And again, John, just wrapping up, how can folks get more information? How can they reach someone at the company for any questions that investors might have?
Yeah, we just launched a social media initiative, hence we're on your show. Google Silver Elephant Mining. We're on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And I'm a CFA. I've authored about 40, 50 articles on Kitco and Seeking Alpha, and we have an array of videos available. And in early July 1st, I speculated or forecasted silver will go to $32. Silver was $18 then. I think we've actually advanced much faster than I thought silver would. I'd have thought that it would have been by the end of the year, and now we're not even into September. We're already looking to breach that $30 mark. And you can get, and then there's email addresses and phone number on the website at which you can get hold of me.
Yeah, and John, I know you said you're going to be kind enough to stick around and talk about that, because you do have a video posted on July 14th where you talked about silver hitting $32 an ounce. The price of silver at the time was $18.89, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But folks, again, if you'd like to get some more information, you can Google Silver Elephant Mining. And John, thank you so much for making some time. It's going to be exciting to follow your success going forward.
Thank you, Chris. With pleasure.